This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.
Minnesota Wild are back in action tonight on this very frequency. That's FM 100.3 The Fan. And the beauty of the modern age is you don't have to worry about the frequency. You can get it via the iHeartRadio app. You can listen that way. You don't have to worry about where you are regarding the signal.
Make the fan a preset.
Make the fan a preset and know that it's free of charge. That's the beauty of it.
No tariffs.
I have no doubt that Russo Radio, do you have the fan as a preset on your iHeartRadio app?
I do. It's the only thing that comes up on my iHeartRadio app.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Works out well.
You know, must listen beyond the pond.
It is a must listen. It's tremendous. And sometimes contentious.
Yeah. It was great last week because Fallness had no voice. It's my favorite type of Fallness.
You loved that. So was it was that the Halvey appearance? Did Halvey fill in on that occasion?
No, he just did the pregame show.
Oh, he did pregame. Okay,
yeah, I think Fallness tried to gut it out.
I did. Russo didn't listen. I did the entire show, and I was fine.
Well, your voice, by definition, Fallness is gravelly, right? I mean, that's part of the beauty of the Fallness voice.
I guess. Yeah, it was pretty bad though for about 48 hours.
I'm glad it's
improved. But we're back.
Yeah,
first time beauty and Fallness have ever been uttered in the same sentence. So not ironically.
So chilly.
Yeah, go ahead, enjoy your interview from my studio.
He's so magnanimous, right? Yeah. He takes all this abuse.
He does.
And yet still allows
That's why we love him.
Russo to hang out in
As you say, you only rip the people that you love.
It's 100%.
And you never do that to somebody that you don't like.
100% true. So the 566th and maybe final regular season start for your guy, a home start of his career for your guy, Flower, Marc-Andre Fleury is tonight, correct?
Yes, and just talking to a lot of the guys in the locker room today, especially Marcus Foligno, I think that they obviously they're getting a boost from the returns of Kaprizov and Eric Sinek, but I think they all, to a man, want to really put their best effort in tonight to protect Flower and deliver him a victory here in what's going to be his final, what we think is at least final start. I don't want to say final home appearance, right? Because, if that Tuesday game against Anaheim is a game where the Wild are already sort of locked into a playoff spot and maybe even playoff positioning, it wouldn't shock me if they start Gus, play him a couple periods, give him a little tune-up for the playoffs, because if he doesn't play Tuesday, then he's going at a minimum 8 days without a start before game one. But maybe you play Flower in the third period or throw him in for a swan song last TV timeout, kind of like an exhibition game, and give him that last proper send-off on a night where it's fan appreciation night and the giveaway is a Flower poster and all that stuff. But he is under the impression that tonight is his last home start. His agents rushed in for the game. He's got friends and family coming in for the game. I assume that some friends and family will also come to the Saturday game in Vancouver, presuming he starts. But the sad part is that his mom and his sister were actually just in town and just left, so they can't make it back for tonight. At least that was as of yesterday. But yeah, tonight will be it for Flower.
Flower, in your piece, says, my role is to be backup and support Gus, and I'm fine with it. Do we have a good handle on what impact any goalie, maybe particularly in this case, this specific goalie, Fleury, can have on the starter in terms of how much conversation goes on, how much mental support there can be? In the end, the goaltender's got to make the saves, right? Nobody can make this. The backup goaltender, even with wisdom and knowledge and experience, can't make the save for him. But have you talked to Flower and I guess Gus Bus about that particular issue and how they've worked that out over the years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously two very, very different styles on the ice. I think with the value of your backup goalie or your second goalie in any team is more off the ice and support.
Right.
And, you see during TV timeouts, Gus is actually one of those goalies that comes to the bench every TV timeout. And he immediately goes right over to Flower, and you can see they have a couple words, and sometimes you could see that Flower's actually kind of either giving him a pep talk or some advice or things like that. Where I think that Flower has really influenced Gus is the pranks. He is now one of those, that will last. He's going after guys. He just recently did something to Foligno that's been a back and forth thing all year. So Gus has learned definitely that part of the Marc-Andre Fleury. But I genuinely think, and I've thought this for some time, and I know that Wild fans roll their eyes at the whole, sometimes, the good in the room and the room being good and all that stuff that you always hear in hockey. But I really think that one big reason why that Bill Guerin wanted to put Marc-Andre Fleury and parachute him right into this locker room 4 years ago, or 4 seasons ago, I should say, is just that the fact that he could help change a culture or establish, one, a looseness, but a winning demeanor in there. And, you might roll your eyes at that or not, but I think that even beyond him leaving this organization as a player, I think that culture that he's helped change in there is going to have a lasting effect. And I don't think he's leaving the organization. I think Bill Guerin is going to do everything he can to, help him start the next phase of his career. He told us yesterday that he'd like to get into management. The coaching is not something that is really something that's interests him. And Bill Guerin has that. I mean, you see Derek Stepan around a lot, Alex Goligoski a lot. Obviously, Matt Hendricks was originally hired by Paul Fenton, but is in the organization still, was first assistant to director of player development. Now he's the Iowa Wild GM and still very much in development. So I think that he's going to be around this organization a lot, and that's always going to be good to have a Marc-Andre Fleury go down in the locker room and talk to a young goalie or a young player and just be around to keep things loose.
All right, so the headline news tonight is, as you reported earlier today, according to your sources, the return of Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek. So tell me if you feel just as certain about that now.
Yeah.
And secondly, what the approach is going to be with them tonight. Are they hitting it full? Is it, we're going to kind of ease them into it? What are you hearing?
I don't think they'll ease them into it, and I don't think you can ease either of them into it. Like, first shift, Eriksson Ek on a stoppage is going to get into a goalmouth scrum. It's just him. It is confirmed. It's official now. Both Kaprizov was activated off long-term injured reserve. Eriksson Ek off injured reserve. Brendan Gaunce and Devin Shore were reassigned to Iowa, which they had to do to get cap compliant. And also, eventually, they're going to need Cameron Crotty is still on the lineup. They're going to need him to go down as well to make sure they can sign Ziv Buya when his college career ends here in the next week, hopefully 4 days, but maybe 1 or 2. I think that we're going to see tonight that Zuccarello, Rossi, and Kaprizov are going to be a line, and I think that we're going to see you remember the old grief line with Greenway, Foligno, and Eriksson Ek and how good they were? I think this is going to be the beginning of something that they're going to try and have Foligno back with Eriksson Ek, but maybe a Boldy on the right. And I think that they like the way that Marcus has been playing lately. He's been great defensively all year, but he really added a lot with Rossi and Boldy. Obviously scored the huge goal the other night. And so I think that they're going to see if that can work. And then that gets guys into proper positions. So now suddenly you have a third line that might be Johansson, Goudreau, and Nyquist, and a fourth line that's Trenyan, Hartman, and tonight Brazo, maybe eventually Hinostroza, we'll see. But it gets people into it. Just the domino effect deepens the lineup just naturally by having Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek not only in the lineup but on two separate lines. It gets the power play back together. So it was weird yesterday because yesterday at practice they got a little contact, but they were on the fifth line. They weren't on the regular line rushes, and you didn't know what was going on. And they were real vague after whether or not they were going to be able to return today. But right when I woke up today, I looked at my phone and I had some pretty good sourcing that said that they were going to basically be back. And that's obviously a huge boost to this team. And I was wondering all yesterday, like, if not now, when? Like, if they're not playing against San Jose, how do you throw them in just against Calgary? So this is a big game tonight. If you win this game, and then maybe if Anaheim somehow beats Calgary tonight, now suddenly go into that game on Friday, and you can pretty much cinch a playoff spot. But tonight they've got to figure out a way to win, not let the returns of Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek just say, all right, everybody takes a deep sigh of relief, and now you know, against a team that can be dangerous, you suddenly are stunned. So I think tonight is still another game that they got to keep the pedal on the metal, and you know, we'll see how Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek do.
So in Kaprizov's case, what's going to tell you that, hey, he's coming back here flying pretty fast, that we're going to be able to see the best of Kaprizov pretty quickly? What are the signs that you will be looking for tonight that will tell you, hey, maybe this thing can get ratcheted up very quickly?
Yep. Now, first of all, I do expect rust. Even just watching him in practice, catching pucks, making passes, I do think that we're going to see that for a while. He's missed a lot of time. But what I'll be looking for are those bursts, the edge work, and to make sure he's not grimacing, because he did have, you know, significant surgery. It's the type of surgery that you have to be confident that you're completely healthy to be able to play that the way you want to play. So that's what I'll be watching. And then, you know, you want to see him take those bumps. You know, we saw very little yesterday. Like, I'm telling you, very brief, like one shift of contact from like Johnny Merrill. So like, that's what I want to see, is how they brush off on both of them, brush off on checks, initiate checks. And then on the bench, I will be watching to see how they're recovering, because the one thing about Kaprizov is he is so good at just, you know, between shifts. Like, you just think he could play forever and ever and ever and not come off the ice. And so that's another thing that I'll be watching, is how is he sort of, you know, what's his body language when he goes back to the bench and sits there and things like that.
Let's get back to you laid out some of it regarding the Wild's playoff situation and where the Flames are here. So we right now are 2 points behind the Blues. That would be for the top wildcard spot. We are 4 points ahead of Calgary, right? And then we've played one more game. They have the game in hand there. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep. And the Wild have the game, and the Wild have a game in hand on
the Blues. Yeah, exactly it. Okay. You mentioned the Blues are at Edmonton tonight. Flames are, as you also said, taking on the Ducks. So, are we at, you know, because I look at 4 points and I go, and the fact we still got to play Calgary, it's like, well, we still can't slip up here.
Yeah, no.
It could get funky.
Yeah, like tonight is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you win this and you go 6 points up at least until the Anaheim game's over. But if they lose, now you are really in a great position going into your last 3 games. But you're right. I mean, it's not a guarantee, especially if the Wild somehow lose tonight and then they go to Calgary and lose that game. So, you know, they've got to keep their foot on the gas. This is the position that they put themselves in, especially by, you know, only getting 2 out of 6 points on that road trip and winning one of their previous 7 games. But it also shows you how massive that victory the other night was against Dallas. Like, they don't win that game and it's a 2-point thing to cushion today. And now everybody is tight. So, and then it also would have paint the complexion, that they're rushing Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek back because they're in this desperate situation, just being 2 up on Calgary. Where tonight, I think it makes it more, you know, logical that these guys are genuinely ready and not being rushed back.
Is Eriksson Ek the second best player on this team?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely second best forward. You know, he just does so much in so many different areas. You know, whether it's taking that big draw at the end of games, whether it's being first over the boards on the penalty kill, net front on the power play, you know, the engine that really, you know, gets this team going. I think this, you know, as much as this might sound stupid, I think this rest, the last 2 months will be good for him, because he was, first of all, this was his 5th separate time out of the lineup this year. He has had an injury-plagued year. He's only played 41 games. And it just felt like he was never getting healthy, because he was always coming back and coming back and coming back. And it was so clear he was dealing with everything from a back to myriad leg injuries to the broken nose at the beginning of the year. Like, it just started terribly for him, starting with game 2 when he got elbowed in the face by Adam Larson and missed those couple games, you know, wasn't on the bird to Winnipeg, things like that. So I just think also just having this last 6 to 7 weeks off got him probably much more healthier than he was. And I think going into the playoffs, that'll be absolutely huge for him and the team.
What, a couple people had texted already wanting to get your view of what you think the defensive pairings will look like when Bouillon gets here. What do you think?
I think the defensive pairings when Bouillon gets here is going to be exactly what they are now. I think that once Middleton is back in the lineup, he'll be back with Faber, Brodeen with Spurgeon, and I think Merrill with Bogosian. I think that's how it'll start. And then Boyum will have to work himself in, whether he, plays because of injury, whether he plays because of poor performance, or they're down in a series and want some sort of spark. But, this is somebody that is going to get here with a day probably of practice on Monday. And then, I assume that he'll make his NHL debut on Tuesday against Anaheim. But, the indications that I've got is that right now they want Merrill and Bogosian in the lineup because they had a different complexion than everybody else. To throw Boyum in right away, I just don't know if they're going to do that. We will see. Let's put it this way, if his season ended a couple of weeks ago when they signed him, I think, and then he was practicing and with the team and all that stuff, I think they could teach him from a defensive standpoint. I think it'd be a lot different than just throwing him in right now. But we will see. A lot of things could change very quickly in these last 4 games, and we know that Boyum's a very, very special player. And I know where Wild fans stand on this. I'm sure everybody listening would love Boyum to just, that it's a no-brainer that he should play over Johnny Merrill. But they need penalty killers. And they need people that they could trust right away, and to throw him into the meat grinder of a playoff series right off the hop. This is not like Brock Faber, who is 2 years older essentially and a more of a defensive lockdown guy and things like that. But I will say, remember when Brock Faber got here, the Wild said the exact same things. He's not playing in the playoffs. And then he was so good his last 2 games, he got into the playoffs and played every game. So we'll see.
646, if you have a question or observation for Russo Radio, who's joining us from the X. Wild back in action tonight against the Sharks are dreadful, right? I mean, can we call this loser-proof, or is that impossible?
No, nothing's loser-proof. I mean, I thought the Islander game was loser-proof, and it wasn't, right? Yeah. It should be loser-proof with Eriksson and Kaprizov back. But look, this is a young team that has an incredible amount of skill with guys like Celebrini, the number 1 overall pick last year, Will Smith, I think number 2 pick a couple years ago, William Eklund, some really good veterans, and guys like Tyler Toffoli and Barclay Goudreau and players like that. So nothing's loser-proof. Anything can happen, but this is a game the Wild definitely should win.
How should Wild fans feel about the starting goaltender as we get ever closer to the postseason?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's been fine. I mean, I think they've been probably running him into the ground a little bit. That's why I do like the fact that Flower is playing today, and that really, we might see Gus get 2 more starts, but not even get 2 games. Like, I think he's got to rest up a little bit because they've really ridden him down the stretch here. But for the most part, he's probably been their best player here the last month and a half. Obviously there have been some big goals by Boldy. Rossi's starting to come on right now. I think Zuccarello's been pretty consistent. Their blue liners have been really good. But to me, Gus, on a team that really was struggling to score the last 2-3 months and has had a lot of pressure on him, he's been, put into battle-tested games and had to be really good. And for the most part, he's been good. So I know there have been some leakers lately. I think that is more a product of the fact that they are playing him so much. And so I think this is good to give him a couple days off here, play him against Calgary. Then he gets another couple days off, play him a little bit against Anaheim, or maybe the full game. We'll see. And then he's got like 5 days to rest up for the playoffs.
What is Russo's, this is from Paul, expectation for the Wild's playoff ceiling?
I feel better about it today than I did yesterday. But look, I remember talking to you back in December, and when they were the best team in the league, or at least had the most points in the league, and saying to you, like, this has been going on so long that it's not a fluke. And then it became, they took Kaprizov out of the lineup, and then they had injury after injury after injury, and then their game started to waver, and it's really been a slog here the last 3 months. I think they are capable of winning rounds. I just don't know if they're going to be able to rediscover that game that made them so good those first 2.5 months of the season. That's my biggest concern. Winnipeg has just been playing great hockey for so long. That's their most likely playoff scenario. Vegas, if they play Vegas is a team that just almost seems to never lose at home. They also are playing just battle-tested hockey right now and have been really, really good for some time. So, and then we obviously know Dallas. I think that any of these teams are beatable. It's just whether or not the Wild are going to be able to find their games, or Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov up to snuff and ready for what's about to happen. Because Winnipeg has really loaded up with guys like Tanev, Luke Schenn, these physical players that are going to not just take it easy on Kaprizov and Ek if the Wild play the Jets. So that's the biggest concern I have. I also just haven't loved their grit here the last month. They're not the biggest, fastest team. And so we're starting to see Trenyon play more physically. We're definitely starting to see Brazo play more physically. So there's still a lot that they've got to prove. And until we they haven't won a playoff round since 2015. Until we see it, them go up against a team and really dictate it. I just don't know if we can all pick them. The one thing I will say is if they play the Jets, I think it's important those first 10 minutes to really pepper Hellebuck, because as good as Hellebuck has been this year, the storyline going into the playoffs is, well, he's got to prove it in the playoffs because he's had 2 miserable playoffs in a row. So if you can get to him early and put that doubt in not only the fans but their minds, the teammates and Hellebuck's, I think that would really move the Wild going into a playoff series against the Jets.
What chance do you give us to actually, forget, just holding off Calgary, actually catching and passing the Blues for the top
it's there. And a lot will depend. Obviously, of the 3 matchups tonight of playoff teams vying for position here, the St. Louis Blues have the toughest matchup, right? They could easily lose to the Oilers tonight, and if that's the case, if the Wild win, the Wild are back in that spot. And then they'd have a game in hand still. So, you know what I'm hoping for. I haven't hitted my selfishness here. Like, I want the Wild to go to Vegas, but that is completely selfish reasons. I actually think that the Wild would have a tougher time against Vegas than they would against Winnipeg, which might sound foolish since Winnipeg is first in the conference. But I just, the Wild just don't really play Vegas well, which is funny because the first, 7 or 8 or 9 meetings, the Wild were playing Vegas better than any team in the league, and it's just kind of taken an about face the last couple years. I will say this year's a little bit weird because all 3 games were second of back-to-backs for the Wild and tough travel and all that stuff, so I don't know if you can really take this year's efforts as gospel, but look, they absolutely can catch St. Louis. I watched that St. Louis Jets game the other day, and the Jets really took it to them. I thought St. Louis looked tired. And even the last couple games of St. Louis's 12-game winning streak, you could just see they were sort of getting lucky, getting last-second goals to force overtime, then winning in overtime. The way it works. And all winning streaks in pro sports, usually at the end, you're starting your game's starting to slip, but you're still able to find a way to get those victories. But I think that we've seen the last couple games that they haven't been as good.
Another texter wants to know, because I don't think I haven't had you on the air in a while myself. I don't know if Guardsy did, but what's your opinion on the Middleton hit against the Islanders?
Yeah.
How it wasn't 5 minutes is for this texter still very hard to understand.
Yeah, and to Bill Guerin too.
Yes.
Bill went ballistic after that game.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it was a major. I don't think it was a suspension. I think it was uncharacteristic of Bo Horvat. I talked to Middleton this morning, and Middleton told me that I asked him if Bo reached out to him. He said, yeah, but I made him sit on it for a day to make him feel guilty. So, because he also didn't think it was an intelligent hit. But he eventually texted back. And look, the only thing that matters now, right, is that Middleton is healthy and fine. I think he felt like he was hit by a bus the last 2, 3, 4 days, but he was on the ice today, is getting closer to returning. And I don't think it'd be smart for him to play Calgary. I think, I don't know what he's feeling, but I think it would be smarter to just, let him wait till the Vancouver game and not put him in a second of a back-to-back situation. But thank goodness he's okay. But I thought it was a terrible hit.
Yeah, and that was where Guerin didn't he yell at you guys? Don't talk to Heinze about this.
Yeah, go talk to that effing bleephole.
Yes.
The only thing is that I'm not allowed to go talk to that effing bleephole.
No,
so
Sid was back in the day, but that's...
back in the day we were allowed to have reporters go down and talk to the refs in the pool, but we're not allowed to do that in the NHL anymore. So usually we're allowed to talk to the supervisor, who was Paul Dvorsky, former referee that night, or reach out to Stephen Walcom and maybe he'll text back, but. Even if we were allowed to talk to the refs, like as a pool reporter, I don't know. Like, there's got to be some sort of boundary, right? You can't just a minor versus major, go talk to the ref every single time. So there's got to be it's almost got to be rule interpretations to talk to the refs. Right. It can't be just every subjective call. And the reality is, he called the minor should have been a major. I think his reasoning to John Hines was absurd. But the most important thing is that the Wild got out of Long Island with, Middleton upright.
So there is no such thing as a pool report in the NHL anymore?
No pool reporters. Yep.
Well, what's that?
Like, I vividly remember being pool reporters back in the day, and they just at some point got rid of it. Like, I remember in the '99 Stanley Cup Final, one of the games, not the game with Brett Hull's foot in the crease, but earlier there was something where I had to go down to the referee's room, and I was the pool reporter for all the people that were covering it. And so that we used to have them, and at some point they just stopped. So I don't know when. Yeah,
I guess I was unaware of that. I had no idea. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think the NHL is like the only league that doesn't offer
I think
any
that's
training.
True. Yeah.
Like even like I love what the NBA does and putting out the report after all these games, and obviously we see it all the time in football. I think Seifert's always been a pool reporter. Yeah. And and I think baseball, you're allowed to talk to umps at times. So, hockey does not allow that.
Odd. Have fun tonight.
Yeah.
We will chat next week and even more often as we get into the postseason. Thanks, man, as always.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks, Russo. That is Russo Radio he's already at the X tonight, the Wild hosting the dreadful, but they tell me dangerous, don't call it loser-proof game tonight against the San Jose Sharks. So we'll see how it goes. It's because things will get funky real quick if the Wild find a way to lose tonight. Trust me, given the fact that there's no guarantee. Now, if they win tonight and obviously the Flames lose, then it opens it up. And then if you take care of Calgary next game, then you're in, clearly. But I wouldn't, don't tempt the sports gods around here right now. Not with what the Twins are up to, not with what the Timberwolves were up to as recently as last night in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, blowing a 24-point lead with 10 minutes to go in the game. That was the best comeback for the Bucks in, I think, since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was their starting center. Bottom of the hour break means time for an in-studio visit with our old pal Pat Kessler. Tariff this and tariff that. That's coming up.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Pat Kessler. Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler.
And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own
Pat Kessler.
Political Wonk.
I feel like a supermodel, except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's
Pat Kessler
with Dan Barrero on the Fan.
It is indeed Kessler time. The texts are already coming in via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. That number is 64686, and those are the dulcet tones. I think that's what they're called of Pat Kessler already in the background. Correct. I don't even know what dulcet means. Do you? Dulcet tones?
Really nice, really soft.
Is that
really
what it means?
Cool.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Dulcet tones. I'll look that up. All right, so the stock market has exploded up again, I think, although you might tell me that in the last hour or two it's gone back down. I don't know. So give us, in a nutshell, if possible, what has happened today on the tariff front and I guess you could say the stock market front in reacting to what's happened on the tariff front just as recently as the last, 8 hours?
Well, yeah. I mean, just in the last 3 hours, 4 hours. I mean, the stock market closed at 3:30 Central Time. It skyrocketed after President Trump announced he is now going to pause those really extreme tariffs.
90 days, right?
He's going to pause for 90 days the reciprocal tariffs, except for China, which he has slapped a 125% tariff. That's amazing, a 125% tariff. So if you buy something for $100 from China, it's going to cost you $225. That's what that is. So this expresses, I think, a lot of relief for what people were fearful, justifiably fearful, about what was happening in the stock market, what was happening
in the bond market.
The bond market, which they believe, behind the scenes are saying, that is what freaked President Trump out. He will not acknowledge that because he is brilliant. He's a genius. Right. This was all in the plan, is what they're saying now. But the bottom line, the headline is that the stock market went up, still hasn't recovered from the nearly 7,000 point drop, 9,000 point drop over the last week. Hasn't recovered from that yet, but it did go up nearly 3,000 points today. Not out of danger. I think a lot of people are very, very concerned. If you're 55 years old, 60 years old, you got to pay very close attention to this because of your 401ks if you have one, or your pension if you have a union pension, whatever it is. So that is where we are today after denying that any of this would happen. The White House saying these are permanent. We are not going to negotiate. In fact, they not only negotiated, but I think you could say the White House blinked. Nothing really was accomplished on this. They're going to try to renegotiate some of these trade deals individually. Nothing has changed, but somehow President Trump is claiming victory on this. And, give it to him, I guess. He's moving this stuff around. You got to wear a neck brace. The whipsaw of this is pretty incredible.
I want to play for you and the audience a bit of sound. This is from the Fox News Channel today, and the anchors are interviewing a Fox business reporter named Charlie Gasparino. He's the Fox Business senior.
Yeah, I know this guy.
Correspondent. You know
Yeah, he's good.
Gasparino?
Yeah, very good.
Let's listen to what Gasparino has to say about today's developments.
Well, because of the mixed messaging, how can you doubt them? Let's be clear what happened. Who capitulated here and why? And I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources. And the reason why is because of the bond market and what happened last night. Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down. When you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan. While he was negotiating with Japan, according to my sources, who are running major money management firms that are involved in the bond market, without giving up names, Japan was dumping bonds because they believed this was not a great place to do business. That forced their hands. Now, what you can say, I think, legitimately here, is Trump decided to take the win. And here's why. There was overwhelmingly, deal potential here among the entire world, except for maybe China, right? Everybody really wanted something. So he did take the win, but make no mistake about it. Peter Navarro was talking as of yesterday about not taking the win, and now they did. And it's all because of the bond market.
What do you think?
Well, this is, it's very interesting. This is almost like saying that, President Trump is operating with killing the economy the Munchausen way, Munchausen syndrome, where you're doing everything you can, and it was tanking the world economy, the global economy, but now he's going to rescue it.
I'm going to swoop in
and he's the firefighter. He's going to take it and take the win and walk away. A lot of people were speculating he would do that. This is, in fact, a stunning reversal from President Trump, who had insisted, and all his people insisted, that these high tariffs were here to stay, historically high tariffs. Now, the bond market is very interesting because when the economy gets bad, when it looks like it's going to go south, many of the biggest countries and banks and hedge funds, they buy into the bond market. These are treasury bonds where you can park your money. They're supposed to be safe, U.S. treasury bonds, and they're supposed to be safe. But if you start selling those off, that indicates that people do not have confidence. That has a spiraling effect that happened like in 2008, where the economy began to crash worldwide. Behind the scenes, the reporting says this afternoon that spooked President Trump a little bit, and he thought, I better get out of this. But a lot of people were saying, take 90 days and declare yourself a victor. And that's what he's doing. And people are calling him a genius, art of the deal. But its critics are just saying that reckless improvisation is not really a strategy.
How about this analogy?
Yes.
I kidnapped a woman last week, and the police were very angry. But today, When I heard the helicopters closing in, I dropped her by the side of a highway. And I'll tell you, I expect to be praised for the rescue.
Yeah. It's almost like that. It has been. I mean, I've been very concerned about this. It's chaotic. It's confusing. We seem to be careening from one tariff crisis to another. And
you are today, Guardsy anointed you as our tariff translator.
Well,
that's the role.
Wow. Okay, I'm the double T.
It's a lot of pressure.
We love you. You're very special.
Said that about you.
Oh,
he did.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That is so good. And you're going to hear over the next few days that this is what people voted for, and President Trump's a genius. And every Republican in the House and Senate, they started to break away a little bit, but many, many, many Republicans were forced to defend this over the last week, saying this is the big deal. There's a strategy here. There's a plan. There is no plan. There is no strategy. And this doesn't really settle the markets yet. And this is still a trade war.
All right, we got a million texts coming in wanting to fire back at you.
Sure, you bet.
Some wanting to fire back at the president. Let's just stay on schedule. We had to take a quick break because we went a little bit long with Russo. So we'll take a pause, keep the text coming, lots more ground to cover. We'll get into some other things with Special K in studio when we return.
We've got another Wild Wednesday here on The Fan, and your shot to win a pair of tickets to the regular season finale. Use the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. Tell us who you think gets the first goal tonight for your Minnesota Wild. A correct answer could net you a pair of tickets to the game April 15th against the Ducks. Use the Talkback. Tell us who you think is going to get the first goal for the Wild tonight.
Dulcet tones, pleasant to the ear, melodious.
Oh, yeah.
Often described as soft and soothing. You love that.
Oh,
quite a compliment, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm no Barry White, but
you don't mind that at all, do you?
I think that it's also used in
dulcet tones,
sarcastic or insulting
way. It can
way.
be, yeah. That I wouldn't know
I'm
anything
never
about
sure
here,
with you.
but yeah, no, that's for sure. All right, I'm going to read you a blend of just sort of a medley of tweets that have come in across the board. Dry Heat Guy here. Ask Pat, if tariffs are so bad, then why does every other country implement them? Do you have any doubt that Trump's family and close friends had a heads up about the tariff pause and were able to profit from what was going to be an obvious market soar after the announcement? You know his FCC isn't going to investigate insider trading on the president. What changed is the 75 countries that agreed to negotiate the tariffs. Trump did this so we could buy into the cheaper market the last few days, knowing he'd undo it a day or two later and scoop the gains. Disgusting. Let me scroll down for a couple more. If you start the fire and show up as the fireman, that's insane. Hey, Kessler, how can you say nothing has happened on the tariff front when there are some countries that have already agreed to dump their tariffs on the U.S.? Always the negative. And Maury Amsterdam guy with a question for tariff expert Kessler. If it's true that tariffs destroy economies, why do other countries have them? It's kind of repetitive from the earlier one.
Sure.
Those are it. So it's across the board. Compliments, savagery. Some people ripping Trump, suspicious. Some people ripping you. Some people ripping me. Whatever.
Tariffs have been a global trade policy for 100 years. We have tariffs to protect our farmers or to protect our steel industry. Other countries have the same thing. They try to regulate tariffs as part of trade policy around the globe. That's the way it has always been. And the trade policies that we have right now are the ones in general that President Trump negotiated when he was in office the first time. That's fine. You want to change it? That's fine. Go ahead and do all of that.
Well, by the way, let me interrupt there. This is going to get us off to a different tangent, but it's worth the time. What do you say to those who say, no, the president shouldn't have this much power, that the legislative branch has ceded too much power in this regard? There are even a couple Republicans who said, hold off a minute here. We need to recalibrate this thing, that we have gone too far down this road that I'm just going to decree, and we're going to make these massive sweeping changes. We should have some voice, some representation in it.
It's not just that President Trump is pushing the limits of presidential power, as many presidents try to do. He's doing it more than most. I'm not exactly surprised about that. However, there has been little or no pushback to many of the Trump policies from the Republicans, even though it is reported that privately they disagree. In this particular case, they actually passed legislation giving the president more unilateral power to do this on his own. Now some of them are trying to claw it back. Remember that this is in the U.S. Constitution, giving the power to tariff to Congress, not to the president. So that is something that I think we're going to see developing over the next few months. The Senate may actually pass a bill taking the tariffs back, the power of tariffs, led by Chuck Grassley, your guy from Iowa. And it might pass the Senate, but it doesn't look like it's going anywhere in the House. In any event, President Trump says he will not sign that bill. All right. Why do other countries tariff? India tariffs a lot of things because they want to protect their own farmers in India. They try to protect industries. We do the same thing. It's back and forth. It's negotiated in different ways. As to the insider trading, a lot of questions about that today. I accuse nobody of anything except to say that President Trump, 4 hours before his announcement on his own True social media, tweeted out, now is a great time to buy low, to buy in, buy the dip. And then Eric Trump retweeted it. Don Jr. retweeted it. 4 hours later, if you had bought low and bet on the come that it was going to go up, you'd be rich today. So, you know.
What do you say to those who also suggest that the formula, the original announcements of tariffs, that in terms of the trade imbalances and deficits, et cetera, that the formula they used
make no sense.
Is fundamentally flawed. It doesn't
absolutely flawed.
It doesn't even come to the conclusions that the administration says it does.
You have to first accept the premise, which I believe is false, that trade deficits or trade imbalances are inherently really bad things.
Yes.
It's fine to negotiate to try to make everything closer, have the trade surplus, a trade deficit, just to make things a little closer. But if you're in Vietnam, where they are making shirts and fabrics and different things for the United States, they're not going to be, it's a poor country. They're not going to be buying as much as we export. So of course there's going to be a trade imbalance. So, this formula that he came up with has been universally mocked and ridiculed, and it doesn't really make sense as to which countries are the worst and which countries are better. I do agree that they've got to do something about China.
China, yes.
They've got to do something, because I think you could make a really fair argument that this is unfair trade practices from China on many things, but sit down and negotiate it. And he's declared war, a trade war on China, but it's not a trade war on China. It's a trade war on Walmart and Target and Best Buy and Minnesota farmers who sell soybeans and pork to China, and they're going to be hit hard, all of these Minnesota companies.
Did you see this quote? I don't know when the president said this. They were getting yippy, Trump said when asked why he enacted a temporary rollback. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid. Obviously, he's talking about, I guess, not just the stock market, but everybody seems to believe it was the bond market that got his attention specifically, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid.
Yeah, so I appreciate that President Trump, wherever he is, unlike previous presidents, you can go back a long ways, is willing to stop in the middle of an event. And he was at a NASCAR event, and he stopped afterwards to talk to reporters. He talks to them in the Oval Office.
All right.
So it's like getting the yips when you're making a putt, when you're attempting a putt. He was saying people got the yips, they got nervous. But remember, it wasn't that long ago. I want to say it was this morning, or maybe it was last night. He said, don't be weak and stupid. Don't be panicans. It's his new party of weak and stupid people who panic in the face of tough tariffs.
Yeah, but yet he has just backpedaled.
He has stunningly, it's a stunning reversal for something he insisted not once, not twice, not 10 times, but 100 times that he was not going to do, and he did it. And this is what we have, I guess, come to expect, where the president does something, it has a really negative reaction. He says that people are coming to him and begging him, kissing his you-know-what, to make deals with him. And then he says, it's over and I won. And that's where we are.
All right, let's get another break in. We'll get into some other subjects with Special K. Continue to examine your texts that come in. 64686 is how you can reach us these days. That is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. There's some stuff a little closer to home. Maybe we'll ask Kessler for some of his favorite music venues. We had the hour with John Bream yesterday, reflecting on the report in the Star Tribune that he was a part of, attempting to rank 53 music venues in the greater metropolitan and a little bit beyond that area. And, you know, I mean, Kessler's a big concert guy. So we'll find out what some of his maybe, you know, sneaky underrated gems might be. All of that, the rest of the show right here in the Fan.
It is iHeartRadio week only on Wheel of Fortune. You at home have the chance to win an exclusive VIP experience at our very own iHeartRadio Theater in Los Angeles. You can watch Wheel of Fortune tonight. Check your local listings.
Another Southwest Light Rail Transit.
Oh, Lord.
Audit?
Oh, Lord.
And how did that go?
All this negativity that's in this town sucks.
Let's just say it was brutal. It is the fourth and final audit of the Southwest Light Rail. And it's so bad in this divided, polarized political times that we're in. The Democrats and Republicans are coming together trying to figure out a way to eliminate the Met Council, which oversaw the light rail. So here's what happened. The latest and final Southwest Light Rail audit came out by the independent watchdog, the Legislative Auditor's Office. It talks about all of the cost overruns and where they made mistakes and what they did wrong. Among them, that LRT wall that we have all watched in the tunnel through Minneapolis, which added literally millions and millions of dollars. It was supposed to cost $36 million just for that wall separating rail lines. It cost $83.4 million. Those are the kinds of things, and there was no oversight. The Met Council was really reluctant to let people know when things were going wrong. Think about this. I started covering light rail in 2010 is when it was approved. 2010. It's not going to be done till 2027 at the earliest. This is 17 years. How long did it take to build the Great Wall of China?
About 2 weeks.
Honest to God. It's pretty amazing. So in 2010, I went back and looked this up. The estimate is that it would cost $1.2 billion, and it was going to open in 2018. So the latest thing we got a couple of days ago in the audit is that it's going to cost $2.86 billion at least, and it's going to open in 2027. So legislators are not happy about this. I think it took a long time for people to realize that this thing was really spinning wildly out of control. To their credit, the Republican minorities at the time were raising the alarm bells 10 years ago, saying this thing is not going well. And in fact, they got to finish it. They say they're going to finish it. It's 85% done. What are you supposed to do? Tear it down?
Yeah, start over.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
So they're folding that Met Council's going away?
It's not. That's not yet. That is one of the things that kept coming up. Why should we trust you to do this with any other big project? The Met Council was formed, I'm going to say, 50 years ago.
And who has the power to? Does the Senate and the House have?
No. They don't have a power. This is not an elected board. They're appointed by the governor. Can be a Republican governor, Democratic governor.
Right.
So this is a Met Council, and they're supposed to be in charge of regional planning, regional parks, regional sewer lines, and electric facilities going up as the counties and as the cities expand. a good idea on paper, but it seems like because they are unelected, that the feeling is that they are unaccountable also. And is this something you could get rid of with overseeing huge projects like this and have the Department of Transportation do it? Then apparently MnDOT is much better at this than they are.
If I understand this correctly, because I've been, gone for a little bit, the chairman of the Minnesota of the Senate Ethics Committee is stepping down for what might be viewed as some ethical concerns. Is that about it?
Yeah, this is pretty remarkable that this has been flying under the radar for the last few years. This is the Democratic Senator Bobby Joe Champion from Minneapolis, who is, in fact, the president of the Senate, but he's also chairman of the Ethics Committee. And the Ethics Committee is the committee that judges the behavior and ethics of the members. But now he's being scrutinized for possible conflicts of interest because he allegedly steered millions of dollars in state funds to a former client and to other nonprofit violence prevention groups in Minneapolis with whom he had links with associates and legal clients. This is something that is very serious. It's a very serious thing. If you are sending out millions of dollars of state money to people, not that you just know, but people you might have some business associations with, and they're your friends. So these are violence interrupter groups in Minneapolis, which are very controversial anyway.
In of itself.
So this is something. So he has voluntarily stepped down while there's an independent investigation of whether he violated conflicts of interest. Usually in these cases, you ask for an opinion before you enter into these kinds of things. And as recently as a month ago, he was sitting before a Senate committee with the head of one of these groups, the violence interrupter groups, sitting next to him, asking for $1 million for this guy. So I don't know. This is something definitely worth watching.
It smells from here, that's for sure. So how did your guy, the governor, do? He was interviewed by another one of your guys, Jake Tapper, on CNN.
Yep.
How'd that go?
I was underwhelmed. And just as we talk about stories that we're going to be hearing about, I believe one of the most underreported stories in the country is who knew what, when about Joe Biden and his cognitive abilities. And Tim Walz was right up close and personal. And Jake Tapper asked him about it. He tried to avoid answering the question. But I recall, I'm old enough to remember after that debate. Remember how crazy that was?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Like late June, I think. Yeah. So after that, the Democratic governors, Walz is the head of the Governors Association. He goes to the White House.
I remember him coming out of there doing a presser.
Yeah, he basically said, hey, he's great.
Everything's fine.
I have complete confidence.
Yeah.
He's fit to serve. It wasn't true. I don't know what Tim Walz knew when he knew it, but there were a lot of people apparently who knew that he was fading and that he was not up to it. And I don't know if there was a fog of misinformation or lies or what it was. If all of these people, including New York Governor Hochul and Gretchen Whitmer and all these people who are in there with him come out all the way behind him and say that he's just fine, don't worry about it. And that wasn't true. So are we going to find out more about that? That's a big question. I think that is right now the most underreported story in America in politics, and I hope someday we do find out.
Well, there are books starting to come out now, correct?
Yeah, there will be some coming out. And I haven't read a lot about them, what's going to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of reporting yet to do. Meanwhile, Governor Walz is still traveling the country. Apparently he has been invited to speak in Canada about tariffs, so he's going to go up there. But he did say a couple of things that were interesting. Governor Walz in his future political plans, right. Not interested really in running for the U.S. Senate. His lieutenant governor will be glad to hear that. He's inclined, I think is the word he used, to run for governor again for a almost unprecedented third term.
We have no limits, right? Legal limits in the state.
We don't.
When it comes to
apparently not at the presidential level either.
That's another story.
Trump's going to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, why not?
It's inevitable.
And if he runs for governor and he wins, I think that does leave the door open for him for running for president in 2028. And, he's got as good a chance as the other dozen Democrats that are lining up. So why not?
All right. On that note, I think we're going to dismiss you. I think that's it for
Dismissed.
Today. You're excited about the black license plate, which has become. I have one, and I really was excited about it.
You got one.
Well, I didn't pursue it. It was it was when I did the last lease I did. They said, hey, they got the black ones. If you like, yeah. I said, and I do like it. But here's what's starting to happen. Now I see so many of them, I think I might be sick of mine already. You know what I'm saying? It reaches a point where it becomes so much the thing and so popular that you go, oh, okay, well, now it doesn't feel all that special. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's why I never read Da Vinci Code. It was too trendy.
Too trendy.
That's true.
Too trendy. I didn't want to read it.
I'm still holding out for the DNR plates with the R-rated DNR plates.
Yes, you love those. I remember.
With the two deer.
Yes, we did talk about that.
Positioned in a certain way.
In a certain way that seemed graphic.
Look it up, kids.
Yeah. It was actually, I think, an optical illusion.
Was it, Dan? Was it? Come on.
Not.
Yeah, look it up. It's awesome.
Do you have one? Do you have a black license plate?
Hell no.
No, you don't. You're too trendy for you.
Well, it costs too much.
Oh, so it costs more?
Okay.
I think it does. Does it or does it not?
When has that stopped?
Got the regular plates.
When has that stopped you?
Well, you're right.
I don't think it costs more.
Well,
does it?
I don't know.
Well,
I haven't even
looked. It costs
looked.
more than a regular plate.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Let's look it up.
That's it.
Well, no, I mean, if it costs, I just go with the thing that I get with the car. Yeah,
the basic.
Why not?
Yeah. I'm surprised yet we actually don't have more variety of plates because people, they get into that. They love the aesthetics of different looks, outdoorsy look.
I travel to different states and I see all sorts.
It's endless now.
And I see some of them now in Minnesota firefighter plates, Purple Heart plates.
Yes.
DNR plates, and there's like five different DNR plates.
Yeah, there are a bunch of those. You're right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a money maker.
Is there a Vikings plate? There is, isn't there?
Is there a Vikings plate?
I can't remember. I thought, for some reason, I thought there might be. Maybe not. But they should have one. I wouldn't do a Twins plate. I don't know how popular that would be at this point. Is that,
well, I do a Minnesota Twins plate.
Would you?
How about a Timberwolves plate?
Oh. Now,
I mean, there's in Wisconsin. I was in Wisconsin over the weekend. I mean,
endless.
Yeah. Green Bay Packers plates everywhere. And different kinds.
That doesn't surprise me.
I think they got 100 different kinds.
Yeah. What was the movie that you didn't go see because it was so trendy?
Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code.
I didn't read the book.
I got ripped for once saying I thought the book was one of the most overrated pieces of popular fiction that I'd ever read. And obviously, is it Dan Brown? I think he wrote it. Doesn't need me. I mean, the guy made, I think, like $20 billion.
Yeah, Tom Hanks did the movie.
And Hanks did the movie, but I thought the book was boring. I did not enjoy the book.
Now, I could be wrong, and I hope I'm not, but I believe that he is married to
Hanks or Brown? Dan Brown. Oh, married to who?
Jamie Gangel on CNN. One of their top
the plot
level.
Thickens.
The plot
I did
thickens.
not know.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Very interesting, if true.
I'm just hearing now
I thought
from
the movie was
one of our great.
Yes.
There is a Minnesota Vikings Foundation license plate.
Okay.
Right, so everybody go out and get it.
How much do the Wilfs get of that?
And think
nothing.
In the foundation.
Why would you say such a thing? So, yes, there is a Minnesota Vikings Foundation.
How much does Michelle Kelm-Helgen get out of it? That's what I want to know.
Stop it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She is a great person.
That's unfair.
Yeah,
That's uncalled for.
I just cannot believe you.
Terrible cheap shot.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, I'm getting a lot of questioning on, but I don't have a black license plate.
Thank you for the palate cleanser to wrap up this segment. Well played.
It's been tough.
Thank you.
All right, man.
That's Special K, Pat Kessler. We'll come back to wrap up the show.
Show Wrap presented, as always, by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the bumper-to-bumper Show Wrap.
So it's a big, big night for your favorite hockey team, the Minnesota Wild. The game will be on the Fan this very evening. I'm assuming pregame show 6:45.
Yes, sir.
After a quick fan and a man in the air hit. And the opponent is imminently beatable for whatever that's worth. Ain't much in this town, quite frankly, given the way the Wolves have played down to competition. The Wild have occasionally done that too. But more importantly, Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek are both scheduled to return to action for the first time in either case over 20 games. And that's a long time in the National Hockey League. So will anything be proven tonight? No, I don't think that's realistic, but it's the first step. So this step had to be taken. Tonight's the night it apparently will be taken, and all of the action can be heard on the Fan. I'm sure we will react to what we see this evening. I think it's fair to say that given their position in the standings, which is solid but not like dominant, you can't mess with tonight's game. If you find a way to mess with tonight's game and Calgary wins and or the Blues win, but more importantly Calgary, then you're asking for trouble, right? Asking for significant trouble. Remember, I think they've got one more game left than we do. And we play them. And the lead right now, what did we say? It's 4 points right now?
Over Calgary?
Over Calgary.
Yes.
Now, if you want to be Polly Danny, you say, screw that. We're going to catch the Blues, right? For the top.
You could.
Wild card spot. So we'll see how that goes tonight. I do also need to correct the record. I had mentioned that the Royals would be getting the brooms out tonight when they hosted the Twins again. It's not a 3-game series. It is a 4-game series. So they might be getting the brooms out tomorrow if the Royals win again tonight, but it is not the proverbial 3-gamer in Kansas City. Kessler joined at 5:30. If you podcast later and you missed him, Russo Radio joined at 5. A lot of conversation on the Wild early. The Wolves collapse in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That followed with a lot of, let's just say a lot of savagery, because I think it's what, frankly, the Wolves deserved. And I maintain, I think the Finchy answer last night would have been a little tougher on how they played if he didn't feel like he had Mike Malone over his shoulder. That sounds preposterous, because Malone just got fired and Finchy is allegedly solid, but you know how this world works. And as we found out this year in the NBA, anything is possible. So maybe Finchy felt enough of the heat where he's going, I'm not going to give the Jackals the red meat they want, where I'm going to melt down on my team at this point. I'm not going to make it easy for them. I'm going to make them work for it. And we did exactly that today, laying out precisely why the sort of, the cursory dismissal of what took place as being no big deal by Finchy.
Just a zone defense.
Is ridiculous.
For adult basketball players.
It's not feasible. It's not plausible. He may feel the obligation to do it, but nobody who's paying attention to this team in their right mind could possibly believe it. 34-3? That just doesn't happen in the National Basketball Association unless, it's the best team in the league playing, I don't know, who's the worst team in the league right now? Is it
Washington?
Washington,
Utah.
Yeah, it usually is. I mean, 34-3 in a game where you were up 24 points with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. No, even by standards this year, that's a new low. And even if they come out of it, they eliminated their best chance to actually not only make, to avoid the play-in, but to have home field advantage in a first-round series. That's the when I say tragic part, I mean from a sports standpoint, tragic part. Great opportunity to put themselves in a much better position than any of us thought they could be in on the basis of the up and down nature of the 2024-25 season. Tomorrow is Inbox Day, Dr. Dan's Inbox. If you want to get ahead of it, it's not illegal. Email Guardsy today or tonight. Work on it tonight. Make it your homework assignment. JG@KFAN.com. And we may add a guest from the A section tomorrow as well. We are continuing our negotiations there. And, who knows what else. We'll probably also react to the return of Luka to Dallas, Texas tonight. First time since he was traded away. That's going to be quite the atmosphere in the Metroplex, as they lovingly call it. I'm assuming that will be a national TV game as well. But again, locally or on the iHeart app or on FM 100.3, all the Minnesota Wild action, pregame, game itself, and then reaction to the return of Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek will be front and center. Hope you enjoyed the program today, and we look forward to your visiting us again tomorrow. We'll start it all over again at 3.
Whenever you want me, I'll be there. Whenever you need.
We love you. You're very special.
I'll be around.
Wendy's is the official hamburger of March Madness, which means more deals for you and more burgers for your face. It also means we got a junior bacon cheeseburger or a double stack for $1 with an in-app offer and a purchase. It's hard not to get excited when there's an offer of 2 of the freshest hot off the grill burgers that Wendy's makes. The junior bacon cheeseburger with the fresh beef, applewood, smoked bacon cheese, crispy lettuce, tomato, and mayo. And the hot and juicy double stack with 2 patties of fresh, never frozen beef with cheese, ketchup, mustard, pickle, onion. The real champions of March Madness. Head to Wendy's app and grab a $1 junior bacon cheeseburger or a $1 double stack with an in-app offer and a purchase. For the freshest deal in fast food, gotta be Wendy's.
PayPal lets you pay all your pals, like your graduation gifters.
Who's paying for the mattress topper?
You mean the beanbag chair?
Aren't we getting a mini fridge?
Can we create a pool on PayPal? It lets us collect the money before we buy.
Ooh, yes, that's smart.
Glad we can agree on something.
Easily pool, split, and send money with PayPal. Get started in the PayPal app. A PayPal account is required to send and receive money. A balance account is required to create a pool.